We just began this. Just as a wise man is recognized through his wisdom, Deios, and through his perspectives, and the result of his degree of intelligence and his perspective, he's seen and recognized at another level than the commoner, than the masses. He's what you would call the elite, because of his wisdom and his perspective being so special. Therefore, he's seen as the elite. Identically, he has to be recognized through his actions, his behavior, which through his eating, drinking, biloso, even the way he engages in intimacy, when he does his bodily functions, ubidiburo, the way he speaks, pilucho, the way he walks, ubabusho, and the way he dresses, his attire, chilkul dvorov, ubamaso matono, and how he articulates the words, and the way he negotiates and transacts any commercial transaction. Every aspect of his behavior has to be seen as pleasant and literally perfect. His behavior is literally above reproach, meticulous, precise. And due to the preciseness that everything he does is calculated to be correct, it's something very impressive. Ketzad, Talmud Chochem, person's a Torah scholar, great amount of Torah knowledge. Lo yeh gargaron, he should not be a glutton. When he eats, it should not be in a gluttonous manner. Ela ochel machol haroy lavros gufo. He should eat foods that actually ensure and restore the health of his body. Purely, people recognize through his eating, he's eating to live, not live to eat. So the way he eats and what he eats is purely for the sake of what? That he should be functionable. Lo yochal mimen achil gas. And even when he eats something which is healthy to maintain his physicality, his function, he should not indulge in it. Literally to overeat, even what's healthy. Lo yerodef lamales bitno. Ke'elushim smalim machol mishte. And he should not be a person who pursues the interest to fill his belly, like those who fill their stomachs with drink and food and drink until their stomachs actually bloat. People eat to such a degree that they bloat. The Gemara tells us that people, when they would eat, they'd have to open their belts because their stomachs would expand. That's not the way this person should eat. If you're a wise man and you have appropriate perspective, you eat only something which is necessary, and volume-wise, only to the degree which is necessary. More than that, what should not. And regarding these people who eat to the point where their bellies expand, the reisi perish al pnechem. Perish means the digested food, and when their stomachs break open, all that undigested food will actually cover their faces. These people, they eat and drink, and all their lives they're always celebrating the days as if it's holidays. Their whole life is holidays. Holidays, you celebrate, you indulge. These are the people, in prophets, people say, eat and drink and be merry, because for tomorrow I shall die. It's rooted, this is what the prophet speaks about the members of his generation. They say, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we shall die. Take it all in. That's what you have to do. Because tomorrow you won't be able to do it any longer. This is the food consumption of the evil. That's the perspective. As long as you're alive, you can take it all in. Once you die, so therefore there's a rush. You have to rush to take it all in as much as you can before you're no longer able to take it in. The shulchanos Eluheim Shegina Kosov, and the tables, they're elaborate tables, $10,000 a place setting. The tables are made of gold. But what does the Navi refer to these tables? These elaborate, majestic tables. Kol shulchanos molikik. Tsoya b'li mokom. These tables are filled with vomit. Ki in Hebrew means vomit. Tsoya b'li mokom. Vomit and feces, and there's no room for anything else but that. Now let's talk. The person has money, and he earns money to create something which can be a detriment to society, to kill people. The money looks innocent, generic. But if you understand how that money is going to be utilized to bring about a weapon which will hurt and destroy many people, that money is the source of all evil. Because if that money wouldn't exist, that evil could not be perpetrated. If you have a table, food, delicacies, everything, and the people are going to eat that food to indulge and just to stuff their mouths, to be gluttons, and the perspective of life is eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow shall die. So what does that food represent? It doesn't represent anything positive. If you understand what the purpose of existence is, you're no different than the dog and the animal. The animal it eats as much because its DNA says eat, it eats. And to what point does it eat? You eat like an animal. A human being's worse than an animal. An animal eats because it eats because that's what it's supposed to eat. It has no control over itself. But a human being has control. And therefore, you're supposed to be something other than the animal. And you choose to be the animal. To indulge and stuff yourself where your belly expands. So what is the value of that food? It's no more than vomit because it's what the end result will be. You need waste disposable systems for these kinds of people, more than ever. For years, we wandered in the desert from the time we left Egypt. We're in the wilderness, there's no food, there's nothing. So how did we survive 40 years? There was food that was considered miracle food. It was called manna. Every day, the daily allocation fell. They would gather it in. Each family, there was never excess. It was never too little. As much as you gathered in, there was always exactly enough. Not more, not less. Friday, they gathered in. They found they had a double portion. For Shabbos, they were not permitted to go out to gather and bring in the manna. Any conceivable nourishment they wanted, if they had it in their minds, the manna would take on that value, taste-wise, texture-wise, nourishments-wise. But whatever you ate, you were fully sated. There's no such thing as indulging. There was no waste. The Jews did not have to do their bodily functions. The manna was absorbed in their inner organs. It was miraculous. The body did not expel waste. What were the Jews? What was the context of our existence in the desert? We were in a spiritual cocoon. Every aspect of a function was within spiritual context. It was to be incubated for 40 years in this chamber, which is called holiness. And after 40 years, what happened? We went into real time. Each man received his portion in Israel. You had your vineyard, you had your orchard, you had your field. But only after you've been so inculcated with this reality of Kedusha, of holiness, only now you're in a position to contend with all the challenges and to take the physicality and invest it in the spirituality. That you eat to live. And why do you live? You eat to what? To do the will of Hashem. To live within the context of Torah. Mordechai was Mordechai and Esther were the heroes of Purim. Esther was the queen of the Persian Empire, she was a Jew, and Mordechai was her uncle, and he was a member of Sanhedrin, the High Court of Israel. He's a man who spoke 70 languages. He's a man who knew everything. And he galvanized the Jews to do tshuva, to repent, because they're really lagging very badly in spirituality. And as a result of all this, we merited the miracle of Purim. So if you read the Megillah, after Haman was hanged and we were given permission to kill the Amalekites, we did to them what they wanted to do to us. What was Mordechai appointed to be? He was appointed to be the viceroy of the Persian Empire, realizing being the viceroy, you're not going to have much time to study Torah. As much Torah as he studied before, it actually infringed on his time to a great degree because he has to attend to all the needs of the empire. He was the what? The viceroy of Egypt, of the Roman Empire, of the Persian Empire. We read in the Megillah that initially Mordechai was accepted by all his colleagues, all the members of the Sanhedrin. When he was appointed to be viceroy, he no longer had as much time. And we read in the Megillah, it says he was Rotzui L'Rovechov. He was only accepted and acknowledged by the majority of his brothers, his colleagues. He was a minority that felt it didn't reflect well on him. Now that you're the viceroy, you're not able to watch, you're not able to study as much. So it's an infringement on your existence as a Jew. Before you were fully occupied in Torah study, now you're not longer because you've chosen to be viceroy. So the obvious question is, but why did he become viceroy? He saved the day. The Jews would have been annihilated, and ultimately, there would have been no Torah, there'd be no mitzvahs, there'd be nothing. But because of his initiative, the Jews did tshuva, the Jews were not destroyed. But what was the cost factor? Now you're viceroy, you're not able to study as much. That's why he's Rotzei Rovechot. So the Gemara takes the takeaway from this is Gedola Talmud Torah Me'atzolos Nefoshos. Greater is the value of the study of Torah than saving a life. Meaning, there's no question. If you have a question, should I study? Should I save a life? Life is primary. You save the life, and you cancel everything. But that's only if you have that conflict. But innately, which has greater value? The Torah is study of Torah. How could it be? Study of Torah has more value than the Jewish life. So the answer is like this: why do we live? God gives us so many years to live. Qualitatively, or not qualitatively. Why do you live? You live to live, to meet challenges of life. And the challenges are contrary to the Torah. Now, do you make the grade? Don't you make the grade? That's what it's all about. So what is the value of life? The value of life is Talmud Torah. That is the value of life. Without Talmud Torah, you don't need a Jewish people. God doesn't need a world. So over here, becoming viceroy, ultimately, compromised your Torah status. So what's the good of having a Jewish people? The Jewish people themselves, our value is not our number, it's what we're engaged in. So if Mordechai was compromised seriously because he became viceroy, what is the primary value was taken from him. And the primary value of a Jew's life is what? That he should live as a Jew, to be able to engage in the Torah and to study it. So the tzaddik who eats, or the Jews in the desert when they ate, there was no waste. There was no illness. It was just absorbed. Because there, everything was within the context of spirituality. But if you eat like an animal always has feces, always has defecates. If you live like an animal, then what is it? What is the value of the food? The value of food can't be for your existence. It's just to satisfy your desire. But what is the end result of that fulfillment of desire? You know what it is? It's vomit and feces. That's the end of the road. If the reason why you're eating and doing all this is to generate spirituality, and that's how you facilitate it, and that's the medium. So what's the value of that food? Kedusha, holiness, spirituality. But if the value of food is purely desire and to immerse yourself, what is the value of food? Only purely to give you that pleasure, which ultimately the cost factor is you have to defecate, you have to vomit. Now, in Rome, they had these food binges. They used to binge. And they used to regurgitate to be able to eat again. That's how immersed they were in this gluttony, the Romans. The Gemara asked the question you're asking. It says when you go, you should carry a shovel, a spade on your knapsack, on your backpack, because like Ace, you have to do your bodily functions, you go out of the camp, and after you do your bodily functions, you cover it over with the spade. So the Talmud asks, but when they ate the man, there was no bodily functions. It absorbed into their inner organs. So the Gemara answers that we traveled through the desert. There were merchants who would come and sell us food. So they ate other food other than the manna, but it wasn't enough food that they'd be able to survive on. So from that food that they ingested, which was just physical food, from that they did their bodily functions. But it wasn't a necessity, because there was no bodily functions. But if they did partake of that, then they would have to cover the human waste.
Thanks, Rabbi. That's interesting.